Did you know that Nick Cannon's father is one of the founding members of the Lincoln Park Bloods in California? And don't you remember just a few months ago when Nick Cannon had made some remarks about Jewish people, and then he got let go from Wild 'N Out and Viacom, and then soon after he came out and said that his mother had done some research and found out on her side that his great-grandfather was a Spanish rabbi? Well, look, people, I don't know about all that, but what I do know is, did you know that on Nick Cannon's father's side, that his 3 times great-great-great-grandfather was a Mexican man that came from Mexico over to Texas? Well, if you didn't know, people, you gonna learn today. Now check this out. Hey everybody, this is Geneva of Geneva's Closet Talk Show. Please make sure you like and share this video and subscribe to Geneva's Closet if you haven't already done so right here on YouTube. And you can follow me on Facebook at Geneva's Closet. And you can email me at genevascloset22@gmail.com. Now, let's get into the news. The reason I decided to make this video is because a few years ago I found out about Nick Cannon's dad. So I said, well, you know what? Let me make a video about it. And then in the midst of me doing my research, I ended up finding an article that mentioned that Nick Cannon had a certain amount of Mexican in his blood. And then that's where my research took a turn, because let's just keep it real, people. We're sitting up here talking about some ancestry that goes back to the mid-1800s. We're talking about the early 1900s. We know people have passed away since then. And even though I found this article, I couldn't just take the article word for it. I had to dig and find information to verify that. And not only find information to verify that, but then I needed to find people today, in today's time, that can verify that there is some Mexican in his blood, and which is difficult to do considering the fact of people have passed away, women last names have changed because they've gotten married. So this is where some hardcore research came in at. So check this out. Nicholas Scott Cannon, and I want you to remember his middle name, Scott. Nicholas Scott Cannon was born October 8th, 1980 in San Diego, California. He is currently 40 years old. To his father, James Ernest Cannon Jr., and his mother, Elizabeth Sharon Hackett, Hackett being her maiden name. Now let me say something about his mother, Elizabeth. They have her named Beth in some things, Elizabeth in other things, and I actually found something else where they have her named Bethany. Now, I think that her original name is Bethany Sharon Hackett, and I believe I seen something where it said her and Nick Cannon's dad was married, so AKA Cannon, and as of right now, they have her last name mentioned as Gardner, so I'm assuming that she remarried, but as of now, we will go with the first name Beth, even though let the record show that I believe that her first name is Bethany. Nick Cannon's father, James Ernest Cannon Jr., was born October 5th, 1962, and he is 58 years old. Nick Cannon's mother, Beth Sharon Gardner, was born May 16th, 1962, and she is also 58 years old. And based on the numbers and the dates, they were both 18 years old when Nick Cannon was born. And as a matter of fact, Nick Cannon was born just 3 days after his father's 18th birthday. For those of you who may not know, and because in today's video we'll be discussing some things about ancestry and genealogy, I'll be using some words, and those words are paternal and maternal. So if I say paternal, I am talking about anyone on Nick Cannon's father's side of the family, and if I say maternal, I am talking about anyone on Nick Cannon's mother's side of the family. For instance, if I say Nick Cannon's paternal 2 times great-grandfather, then I am talking about Nick Cannon's great-great-grandfather on his father's side of the family, which would be Nick Cannon's father, great-grandfather, and Nick Cannon's grandfather, actual grandfather. And if I say Nick Cannon's maternal grandmother, then I am talking about Nick Cannon's grandmother on his mother's side of the family, which would be Nick Cannon's mother. Now, being able to use these words will better help me to explain things to you so you're not confused when we get off into this ancestry later on in this video. Now that I done got that all out the way, Did you know that Nick Cannon is one of 5 boys? That he has 4 brothers? So yes, people, I had no idea. And his brothers' names are Gabriel Cannon, Reuben Cannon, Caleb Cannon, and Javen or Javine Cannon. Now, the reason why I am saying that Nick Cannon has 4 brothers is because that's what he confirmed in his Vlad interview. He was asked, was he one of 5 boys? And he confirmed that. And he was asked, did he not have any sisters? And he confirmed that. But to be perfectly honest with you people, the last brother that I mentioned, Javen or Javine Cannon, he is mentioned as, in some things he's mentioned as a brother, and in other things he is mentioned as a cousin. Now, based on my research, things that I have read and seen, I'm thinking that he may be a cousin. I don't know. We're going to figure it out later on in this video. But basically what I'm getting from this whole situation is Nick Cannon was born and raised in San Diego, California, in the Bay Vista housing projects in the Lincoln Park area. And over there in the Bay Vista housing projects in the Lincoln Park area, it was a lot of gang activity going on and things just wasn't right. And Nick Cannon said in his Vlad interview that his father got into trouble early on and was sent to North Carolina. Now remember, earlier on in this video, I said that Nick Cannon's paternal side of the family, Nick Cannon's father side of the family, comes from North Carolina. So when James Jr. wasn't acting right in California, they sent him on to the South to get his life together. And that's exactly what Nick Cannon said that he did. He said early on, before his father even got to college, his dad had got into God, into the ministry, and got his life together, graduated from high school. Nick Cannon said he was even there. Not that he remembered it, but he was there. And remember also at this time, Nick Cannon's mother is 18 years old. She's young also. Now they have her down as an accountant. I don't know if she was doing accounting work at that time. I don't know. But Nick Cannon has said that his mother was working and that his father was off getting his life together. So who was raising Nick Cannon? Well, that responsibility went off to his paternal grandparents, James Ernest Cannon Sr. and Marie Antoinette Cannon. And Nick Cannon has said multiple times that he views his grandparents as his actual parents. He calls them mom and pops, the exact same thing that he calls his own parents. And in something else I read, it says that James Jr. and Beth stayed together for a short time. They separated soon after. So with that being said, people, I cannot confirm or deny if Gabriel, Reuben, Caleb, and Javen or Javine, whether that is the brother or the cousin, I don't know, is Beth's sons too. Because I'm starting to think, based on some things that I done seen and read, that the boys may be James Jr.'s sons that he had by other women or another woman, and Nick Cannon may be Beth's only child. I don't know, people. We're going to get into it, and then you tell me what you think. When you hear about Nick Cannon, we are usually hearing about his entertainment career, his celebrity relationships, or any type of drama that they want us to know. But we never really go deeper with him and find out what's going on with him behind the scenes. But that's what we are doing here today on Genevas Closett. So this article that I am reading from is from Rapzilla.com, written in 2017, and it says, ask about Nick's family and you'll immediately think of ex-wife Mariah Carey and their twins. But beneath the noise and the chaos of a public life lies the heart of Nick, his family, and in this article, a God-fearing brother named Gabe, who shares his experiences with his famous brother and his own transition from partying little bro to a bar-spitting Christian rapper who wants to see Nick's platform be used for the Lord. There was a time when Gabe was thrilled to just be identified as Nick's little brother. And while he'll still gladly accept that, he wants people to know that he's on a new journey, one ordained by God. I felt a calling, but am I alone in this journey, said Gabe, as he was in a world that didn't understand the calling to Jesus. God said, if you ain't obedient, I'm going to call someone else. Gabe, Nick, and their other brothers, Reuben and Caleb, grew up in the church and grew up making music from an early age. Now, let me pause. Did you just hear what I said? This is written in 2017, and it says Gabe, Nick Cannon, Reuben and Caleb. So it only mentioned 4. It did not mention Javen or Javine. So that must mean that he is a cousin. And if I'm not mistaken, they have him as last name Cannon. But anyway, people, let me go on. Their father used to grab the video camera and perform church songs with the kids. The Cannon brothers would also do skits and make little movies. The camera was always rolling and is there where Nick must have got the entertainment bug. As it became evident that Nick would become a star, the brothers made an idol out of their older brother. They were a humble family from North Carolina, and now all of a sudden Nick's in Hollywood or on Nickelodeon? Dang, he's made it. We couldn't believe it. It was impossible. We're back home in our mind, everything changed. Now we want to go out in LA with Nick. We started to put on talent shows and try to develop our talent because we knew Nick was going to take us. He continued, we idolized him. He's already the big brother. Everything he does, the clothes he wore were cool. He used to write our music and we wanted to be just like him. Gabe said he was even trying to talk like Nick. Whatever Nick did, they had to do, and whatever Nick said was funny. He would say, you need to stop laughing at stuff. That's not funny. In school and around peers, the brothers wanted everyone to know that they were Nick's brother. Gabe said he brought in a magazine cover to school and told the class that Nick was his brother. As expected, the class laughed at him and made fun of him for lying. I always felt like I had something to prove. As Nick got more famous and we moved to Hollywood, everybody already knew that Nick Cannon brothers were coming, said Gabe. The girls had us picked out to be their boyfriends and made up in their mind what we looked like. They thought they had an idea. The one problem that Gabe has was that he looks nothing like Nick. I'm a 6'3" dark-skinned dude and don't look like Nick. And you see their faces and feel like they're disappointed. He said he started to expand his characteristics to be more like Nick so they would believe him. I completely lost who I was. God has shown it to me now. Now I'm trying to live up to everybody's expectations instead of my brothers. As the young Cannon brothers were now navigating their way in Hollywood, the house parties, drinking, and the girls were plenty. Everything was in excess, and Nick was always getting stuff first before it came out. We got a true dosage of life. Everybody was our friend, but there was nothing just for us. It wasn't genuine. Even relationships with girls, Gabe explained that girls were just notches on his belt. It became how he filled himself up. If she thinks I'm this, then I feel good. Someone had to make me feel better. Right out of high school, the Cannon brothers were employed by Nick to work on MTV's Wild 'N Out, hanging out with the models and bringing in my high school friends everywhere. He said, it's a feeling of power. But I have no idea. I am empty and only doing stuff for approval. God was far from the mind of the Cannon brothers. Nick was the head of the empire, and the younger brothers were his right-hand men, taking care of business behind the scenes and being granted opportunities. Nick was able to open up the door for Gabe to be in a rap group with his other brother called Writes and Artists. He said he literally had to fight to write his own lyrics in the group. Nick was behind the whole group and had a plan to connect how the songs go. When you say it, you have to sound as ignorant as possible, Nick would tell them of their rap lyrics. The content was terrible, but I see his mind from a business standpoint, said Gabe. It's the biggest platform I'm on, and I don't even have the opportunity to contend and complete. I have to play this role and purposely be ignorant for attention. Gabe said that he would split Nick's verse, and then one he wrote and played them side by side to show Nick who the better writer was. Eventually, Nick loosened the reins, but the group was able to have a small burst of success when they toured with Mariah Carey. During this time, he always felt a small nudge by God to serve, but wasn't ready yet. When he was just 19, he went into the booth and rapped a Christian song called Tug of War. They kicked me out of the booth, said Gabe. For the kingdom, I've always done it. We had a group. When Nick was 12, I was like 8, called 3YB, Three Young Brothers. We planned all these performances, and the lights would go out at church, and we would sequin our LA Gear sneakers. They performed church songs and performed He Is the Light of My Life flawlessly. That's been the origin of everything. One of the things was always knowing the truth of Christ, but then to publicly make a stand, but have things you partake in that you shouldn't, said Gabe. I was the guy who'd be smoking with you, but talking about Jesus. That put a cloud over the gospel. How are you trying to tell us something when you over here doing the same things? God still had a plan for Gabe, but it wasn't time yet. He wasn't in the best place mentally or spiritually. Tug of war was a tiny spark, but the fire was yet to come. You know why God didn't let that happen? I probably would have ended up on the news headline somewhere in a hotel, OD'd on something I never tried before, trying to please someone else. He wake up not knowing who he went to bed with. Gabe went from knowing the truth of God and wound up in a place where he couldn't even be alone without a woman. Then one night, all the repressed spirit he was bottling inside to avoid God bubbled out in an incident at a friend's house. I'm in my friend's yard on the floor screaming for God at 3 a.m. while people are standing around contemplating calling the cops. God started showing me the pureness and the innocence. This is who I made you to be, Gabriel. It started hitting me bad. From then on, he started skipping out on radio shows, stopped answering his phone, and stopped taking meetings. Every business opportunity he had begun to fall through because he needed this time to get right with God. I moved to Malibu and went to the beach with my daughter all day and read my Bible. It was true repentance. When Jesus told the woman, sin no more, I wanted it. The most amazing part of the story was that Gabe was alone in his call to God. God also called his brother Caleb first. Caleb went cold turkey on everything and went into full evangelization mode. He called up Nick and said, I'm with God now, and quit everything. He joined the Bible team and went on the streets to evangelize. Gabe said after the MTV job, Caleb could be seen on Hollywood Boulevard sharing the gospel. People would be hitting up Nick saying they saw his brother, the Jesus freak, in the streets. Nick would get embarrassed. The crew was getting scared that he'd come in the office and convict everyone. God said, you know you're supposed to be out there with your brother, said Gabe. It was mind-blowing. He said a lot of people are skeptical of what's going on. People see what's happening, and I'm just letting God work. Gabe is grateful that God restored himself into him, Caleb, and now their brother Reuben's life. The next task at hand is to bring Nick back into the fold. Nick is going to work himself to death. The doctor wants him to rest, said Gabe, referring to the last winter when Nick was hospitalized. To be with Nick is to work with Nick. If you're not working, you're not moving. It's hard to say you're wrong when your whole life points towards right and say, I need your help, Gabe said of his older brother. Gabe said when he visited Nick in the hospital, Nick asked him, where have you been? He told him he hasn't gone anywhere and is just serving God. I'd rather be an example of a man following God and to continue being that strength. You don't know how the divorce is affecting Nick. He's got to be Superman all the time, he said of Nick's drive to nearly work himself to death. I know life and death are his questions now. For now, all Gabe can do is pray for his famous brother and continue to move in these spaces that God has carved out for him. The first space was music. God was telling me to pick up my pen. He's fully ready to get the message of the gospel out and is surprised as what's coming. I wasn't trying to be like no one else, just writing from my heart. Devil is on the left, man on the right, God in the middle. I've been on tour, been in Hollywood. I just need to guard myself. God said go, so I go. I found an article from 2011 that said that Nick Cannon's brother Gabriel had been arrested. And basically this is what it says, that Gabriel Cannon and 2 other people were released from a North Hollywood police station after an initial investigation. Cannon and 2 others were arrested Wednesday night after they reportedly assaulted and robbed Alex and Alejo, if that's his name, Moreno, of cameras and jewelry. The Morenos, who work in reality TV, were working on a show for the past year with Cannon and the suspects. But after interviewing the suspects and the victims, the LAPD concluded that no robbery took place. Police determined the property taken from the victims actually belonged to a third party. Police released Cannon and the other suspects around 1:30 a.m. Thursday. An investigation is ongoing. Authorities are not releasing the names of the suspects. Gabriel Cannon has several credits, including his brothers Nick Cannon Presents, Wild 'N Out as a production assistant, and as an actor in the 2006 movie Even Money, which also starred Nick Cannon. I have to keep it honest, people. When I was doing my research for this video, I could not find that much information on Nick Cannon's brothers. And the stuff that I did find, majority of it was because of me doing some hardcore snooping. But I found this article dated for 2018, and it says Nick Cannon's brother is in Mariah Carey's corner after shocking accusations surfaced today alleging Carey suffered a delusional breakdown that led to a hospitalization in 2016. Her former brother-in-law, Reuben Cannon, told Radar Online exclusively, "Mariah is not crazy. I've known Mariah for so long, and she is the mother of my niece and nephew. She is a great mother and is a great person," insisted Reuben, who is forging his own career in music. "Mariah helped me get my start, and she was one of the first people to give me a chance when no one else would. And it is not because she was married to my brother," the rapper's younger brother continued. It took a lot of courage for Mariah to reveal what she did to her fans, and people are trying to use that against her for their own gain. Getting on to Caleb. Now remember, I said that I don't have that much information on the brothers, and whatever information that I did find was from me doing some hardcore snooping. But Caleb, I personally think is the younger brother. I think that it's Nick Cannon, Gabriel, Reuben, and then Caleb. So what we do know about Caleb is what we heard from Gabriel, saying that he's into church and he's doing his thing. So that's absolutely wonderful. And then we have the brother Javen or just whatever, people. The one that in some articles he say that he's the brother. The other articles say that he's the cousin. But and then I personally think that he's the cousin. But it did say that he worked as a comedian on Nick Cannon's Wild 'N Out, so that is something new that I found out about him. But do you remember in the earlier part of this video that I had mentioned that I was not sure that if Beth was the mother of the other 3 or 4 boys? Well, based on me doing my snooping and going through pictures, I had noticed that in the pictures I seen several where James Jr. is either with all the boys or with the boys individually. But I have yet to find any pictures where Beth has taken any with either all the boys or any of the boys individually, with the exception of Nick Cannon, which makes me think that she is not the mother of the rest of the boys, that Nick Cannon is her only son. And I'm also basing this off of what Nick Cannon said in his Vlad interview, that he only had brothers and he don't have any sisters, which leads me to believe that Beth did not have any other children and Nick Cannon is her only son, and the other boys, whether it's 3 or the other 4 boys, is James Jr.'s sons. Now, don't you remember in the earlier part of this video, we were talking about the Bay Vista housing projects in the Lincoln Park area in San Diego, California, where Nick Cannon was born and raised? And remember that I said in that area there were a lot of gang activity. Well, there were actually Bloods and Crips in that area. And do you also remember that I said that his father had got into some trouble at that time and had to be sent away to North Carolina? And then on the flip side of that, do you also remember where I had said that Gabriel had got into some trouble with the law, and you know, he had got into some situations and he seen the fame and everything that glitters isn't gold, and he turned his life around and got back with the Lord? And then, I don't even know if I mentioned this, but Nick Cannon said that he didn't necessarily say that he was in a gang when he lived in the Bay Vista housing projects, but in so many words you can get from him that because he was in that area and he knew the people, that yeah, he was in a gang, but it wasn't something that he really wanted to be in, and his family did everything that they could do possible to keep him out of that. And his father had a whole lot to do with that by making sure that the camera was in his hand and that he was finding other things to do. Well, Nick Cannon's brother isn't the only one that turned his life around, and Nick Cannon isn't the only one that made the decision that this isn't the life for me. That also happened with James Ernest Cannon Jr., so let's get into his story. Do you remember at the beginning of this video I said, did you know that Nick Cannon's father was one of the founding members of the Lincoln Park Bloods? Well, check this out.
And you know Nick Cannon from my project in San Diego. Yeah, his
Nick
pops,
Cannon.
Yeah, his pops is one of the first 10 homies from my turf. You feel me?
Whoa.
Yeah, bar.
Oh. Yeah. Nick Cannon pops is one of the original Bloods.
Lincoln Park Bloods. Damn, I don't know if I want to put that out there, but like I don't want to blast him out like that, but he straight up, it's big homie.
That's dope. I
Love the big homie.
I think that's dope. Reason why it's important to know
from
that.
The era when it came for the reasons you said it was about.
Yeah. Reason
protecting
why,
the community.
Reason why it's dope to say that, because look how his child turned out.
Right.
So every child of a active gang member or a founding gang member don't have to be following their father's footsteps.
Nick didn't do that. Nick
talented.
Nick went to a school of creative and performing arts. I went there too. It was in the hood, right in the middle of the hood when I went there, and we just wanted to go see the little girls running around in leotards, but you had to learn something while you was there, and niggas was picking up stuff and didn't even really know it, homie. You know what I mean?
The Lincoln Park Bloods, LPB, are a predominantly African-American street gang located in the Lincoln Park region of Southeast San Diego, California. The Lincoln Park Bloods were originally known as Paul Lowe's Control. Remember that name, people? I'll be bringing it up later. Paul Lowe's Control throughout the 1970s. However, this eventually changed to Lincoln Park Sindo, if I'm saying that correctly, mob in the late 1970s. Nevertheless, they changed their name to Lincoln Park Bloods around 1986. The Lincoln Park Bloods territory is near Logan Avenue and around John F. Kennedy Park, which they refer to as Lincoln Park. They dominate the Bay Vista apartment complex, The Dip, which sits directly across the street of the JFK Park. Blood's traditional colors are either red or burgundy. However, members of the Lincoln Park Bloods are known to sport green as their signifying color along with red. The Lincoln Park Bloods created a murder clique called Termite Squad, which is responsible for a large portion of the gang homicides, similar to the Italian Murder Inc. I'm reading an article from a man that had just got out of prison, but he was once a part of the Lincoln Park Bloods, and he was interviewed, and this is what he had to say. The Lincoln Park Pyru of today were once called the Paul Lowe's Control, PLC, a short-lived title named for their hangout, a popular liquor store that was owned by a former San Diego Chargers running back who lived in the general area of Euclid and Logan Avenue. It was rumored that Paul Lowe expressed disapproval of his name being used as a gang title. Out of respect for him, PLC became the Lincoln Park Players or the Lincoln Park Boys. Can't recall the exact order, but I certainly recall the titles. Now let's get into the meat and potatoes of this video. The reason why it took me a whole week to get done with this video in the first place, because let's just keep it real, people, I could have been done with this in a few days. But because I'm nosy, and Nick Cannon had to come out talking about that his great-grandfather was a Spanish rabbi, and now I got to sit here and figure out, well, was he a Spanish rabbi, or was he just a rabbi, or was he anything? Then the next thing I know, I'm finding out other information about some Mexicans, and now I'm interested into that, and now I got to super dig into that. So basically, people, go get your pens and your pad and whatever you need to get, because we're about to start this bumpy road on this ancestral journey. So check this out. Let's get started with Nick Cannon's maternal side of the family, his mother's mother side of the family, and let's get started with Nick Cannon's great grandparents. There was a man by the name of John Wesley Long, born 1898 in Texas, died October 9th, 1970 in San Diego, California at the age of 72 years. Well, he met a woman by the name of Ruth Louise Jenkins, born November 27th, 1910 in Phoenix, Arizona, and died February 18th, 2004 in San Diego, California at the age of 93 years. Well, these two had some children, and one of their daughters' names was Elaine Marcia Long. And Elaine, now we're getting into Nick Cannon's grandparents, was born April 23rd, 1939 in San Diego, California. And as of now, people, she is 81 years old and still alive. Well, Elaine married a man named Melvin Milford Hackett, born April 18th, 1930 in Newcastle, Delaware, and died February 25th, 1989 in San Diego, California at the age of 59 years old. Well, these two, Elaine and Melva, they had some children, and one of their daughters' name is Elizabeth Sharon Hackett, born May 16th, 1962. Right now, she's 58 years old. And who is that? That is Nick Cannon's mom, and you know how the rest of that story goes. I want to remind you again what Nick Cannon said. Nick Cannon said that his mother did some research and found out that his great-grandfather, her grandfather, was a Spanish rabbi. And based on what we've already talked about, John Wesley Long, Nick Cannon's maternal great-grandfather, who married Ruth Louise Jenkins, appears to be black. So that's why now we are going to go on Nick Cannon's paternal side of the family and see what that great-grandfather looks like. His great-grandmother, Florence Mears, born 1892, don't have a whole lot of information on her. She married Nick Cannon's great-grandfather, Charles Hackett, born January 1878 in Queen Anne, Maryland, and died November 22nd, 1937 in Newcastle, Delaware at the age of 59 years old. He also appears to be black. I am not saying that Nick Cannon lied and that there is no Spanish on his mother's side or a rabbi on his mother's side, because to be honest, his mother looks like she can be mixed with something. I just didn't find anything. This was not a long enough time for me to be doing that type of research. If you probably would have gave me another week, I would have been able to pull up something. Nevertheless, based off of what we've talked about, I have not seen anything Spanish on his mother's side, so that's all right, people. Let's go to the paternal side and see what we can find. Let's start off with Nick Cannon's grandmother's side of the family, his father's mother, and his grandfather's wife, and her name is Marie Antoinette Cannon. I don't know if you remember this picture with Mariah Carey and this lady. I kind of threw this up in the earlier part of the video. Yes, this is Nick Cannon's father's mother, and this is where things become a little interesting. So, check this out. A black woman by the name of Jamuta Jenny Boxtel, if I'm saying that correctly, born in 1854 in Arkansas and died June 24th, 1931 in Waco, Texas at the age of 77 years old, married a man in 1854 by the name of Luis Blanco, a Mexican man born in 1836 in Mexico and died December 11, 1926 in Waco, Texas at 90 years old. Now, Louis and Jamuta, they had 3 children, Lola in 1884, Pete in 1893, and Maddie in 1900. They had 2 girls and a boy. Now, just remember that because we're going to get back to them in a bit. Nick Cannon's 3 times great-great-great-grandparents, Louis and now Jamuta Blanco, youngest daughter Maddie, born in 1900 in Texas and eventually died in Texas. Well, she eventually married a guy by the name of John Scott in Arizona, and that's when Maddie's last name changed from Maddie Blanco to now Maddie Scott. And remember Scott, Nicholas Scott Cannon. Remember I told you to remember his middle name because this is where I actually think he got it from. Now, before I continue, I just want to give you a visual because visuals work really good for me. Remember that Louis is Mexican and Jamuta is black. So now they done had 3 kids, Lola, Pete, and Maddie. So Maddie is now a mixed child and she gets with John Scott, who is black, and now they eventually have some children, and one of their children's name is Walter Lewis Scott, a boy born September 1917 in Texas, died December 16, 1957 in San Diego at the age of 40. He eventually marries a black woman by the name of Wyomia Logan, born November 12, 1922, died January 25, 1999 in San Diego, California at the age of 76. We discussed Nick Cannon's 3 times great-grandparents, Louis and Jamuta Blanco, and then his 2 times great-grandparents, John and Maddie Scott, and then we talked about his great-grandparents, Walter and Wyomia Scott. Now we are about to talk about his grandparents, who Wyomia and Walter had. They had children, and one of their children happened to be Marie Antoinette Scott. Born September 3rd, 1941, she is currently 79 years old and appears to be still alive, and she eventually married evangelist James Ernest Cannon Sr. on April 10th, 1960. He was born December 1st, 1936 in North Carolina and died May 21st, 2016 in San Diego. They had 4 children, and their second oldest and only son just happened to be James Ernest Cannon Jr., and we know that story. He eventually got with Elizabeth Sharon Gardner, and they had Nicholas Scott Cannon.
Importantly, I wanted to let you know that the cameras was actually following me around and stuff, because if I could find a perfect example of a hero, I would say that was my grandmother, Marie Cannon. Because
you're kidding.
I'm telling you. All the pressure of you to hold down the household for so many years and helping raise me from a baby while my dad was off at college and my mom was working, and you kind of were the backbone and the matriarch of our family, just sacrificing and giving so much. You're my hero.
When I was trying to make my connection as far as Nick Cannon and his Mexican ancestry, it was important for me to be able to visually see something. I needed to see some Mexicans, and I was trying to make some type of connection with the last name Blanco. For me, I figured that it wouldn't be too difficult to find his grandparents, but it was his 2 and 3 times great-grandparents that I was trying to make a connection with. So for me, like I said, I was trying to go for the Blanco. So remember, it didn't take too long for the Blanco last name to be changed from Blanco to Scott, and that was just with Nick Cannon's 2 times great-grandparents, Maddie Blanco. When she married John Scott, it changed to Maddie Scott. But remember, I told you to remember her 2 siblings, Lola and Pete, because we were going to come back to them. Now, this is Louis Blanco, the Mexican man from Mexico, and Jamuta from Arkansas. Their 3 kids, Lola, Pete, and Maddie. We already talked about Maddie. So now Lola and Pete. So let's go to Pete. Pete Blanco married a lady named Lucy. They had 2 children, a daughter and a son. Their daughter, Lillian Blanco, couldn't find her. Didn't want to take too long on that. Figured that her last name was probably changed. That's why I couldn't find her. So then I went to the son, Eldridge Blanco. I said, maybe I can find Eldridge ancestry line and be able to find somebody today. Then I looked at his dates, and it said that he was born 1914, died 1936. So he died at 21, 22 years old, and he never had any children. Okay, so then I went to Lola Blanco, the other daughter, and then I seen that she married, so her name is now Lola Blanco Leonard. She married a guy named R.L. Leonard, and they had 1 son, General Howard Leonard. I said, okay, maybe I can find his ancestral line that'll go to today, 2020. And then I seen that he was born January 3rd, 1914, and died September 28th, 1914. So he died at 8 months. When I seen that, then that was proof that I was not going to find any Blancos. So then the next thing for me to do was to go to the great line and the great line to see if I can pull any Scots now, since now we know that the last name has changed from Blanco to Scott, and there's no coming back to Blanco. Now it's time for me to find some Scots. And that is when I found this young lady, Gail Frances Cortell. And who is Gail Frances Cortell? Well, she is the sister of Marie Antoinette Cannon, James Sr.'s wife. And they are the children of Wyomia and Walter Lewis Scott. And Walter Lewis Scott is the grandson of Louis Blanco, the man that came from Mexico. So when I found this information, I damn near dropped my mic, and I didn't even have a mic. But it says Gail Frances Cortell, because she got married, so her last name changed from Scott to Cortell, was born on May 30th, 1940, and died November 6th, 2018. Then the obituary goes on to say Gail was not only the first child born to the union of Walter Lewis Scott Sr. and Wyomia Logan, but perhaps more importantly, she was the first grandchild born to the beloved Mama Georgie, because on the genealogy report, it lists only Walter Lewis Scott and Wyoming Logan having 2 children, Gail being first and Nick Cannon's grandmother Marie being second. But based on my research, they also have a son, Walter Jr. So it was the 3 of them. But as I kept reading her obituary, I noticed that it said that she was married, and she married a guy named Raphael Barbarous Cortell. So that's where her last name came from, and they had 5 kids and was married for 52 years until he passed away. And I said, wait a minute. He sound like a Mexican. I said, so did she end up doing the exact same thing her great-grandmother did? Her great-grandmother and grandfather did, a black woman marrying a Mexican? So then I had to go look him up, and yep, the exact same thing. Check this out. Now remember, Gail Francis Cortez is Nick Cannon's great aunt, and Raphael B. Cortell Jr. is Nick Cannon's great uncle. And his obituary says Cortell Jr., Raphael B., born in San Diego on February 13th, 1934, died February 5th, 2011, worked 43 years at North Island, survived by Gail Scott Cortell, his wife of 51 years, and their children. I just thought that this was so cool because, you know, we don't always know sometimes, or sometimes we do know how things repeat itself down our family line. Like, who knew that she would end up doing the exact same thing her grandmother did, her great-grandparents did, had the Mexican and black interracial relationship, had a few children together, and stayed together for a long time. Well, stayed together until one of them passed away. And so, yeah, I thought that this was pretty cool. And based on finding Miss Francis Scott, everything kind of opened up, and I was able to go on and search everyone then, and I found so many different people. And then I even found out that Nick Cannon has a family land last name that is Nicholas, just like he has a family land last name that is Scott. And then we know about the Cannon. So I'm like, is all 3 of his names really last names? You know, like, was that done purposely? I don't know. But basically, people, I had a whole lot of fun researching Nick Cannon's family. Did I find a Spanish rabbi? No, I didn't. If you would have gave me a few more weeks, I probably could have pulled up a whole lot more and a whole lot more pictures of people. But in the time that I had a whole lot of fun, and I felt like I learned a lot about his family. First of all, he has a beautiful, big family, spiritual and everything. I mean, his dad is an evangelist, motivational speaker. Right, I think he wrote some books or something. I mean, but he's just doing amazing things. His brother, I seen that his brother Gabe got married. And then, if I'm not mistaken, some of the other brothers got married. And then in addition to that, James Ernest Cannon Sr. was born to Esau and Corinne Cannon. And his mother actually outlived him. This year, she made 100 years old, being born in 1920. Nick Cannon celebrated her birthday with her. So isn't that fabulous? Hopefully she's still alive and on her way to being 101 next year. And in addition to that, I found out that one of Nick Cannon family members was the first woman to do, and it says, and this is dated for August 9th, 2018, the Reverend Dr. Katie Geneva Cannon, go ahead girl with that name, Annie Scales Rogers Professor of Christian Ethics at Union Presbyterian Seminary, first African-American woman ordained as a minister in the Presbyterian Church, and a foremost scholar of the womanist movement, died Wednesday after a brief illness. She was 68. Dr. Cannon was greatly admired and loved by the entire seminary community as a scholar, teacher, and friend. This is a difficult moment. Our resurrection faith sustains us. Well, people, yes, this video was definitely a lot of work, but I fairly enjoy putting it together because I feel like I learned so much, and not only about Nick Cannon's family, but just about family dynamics, period. And my opinion, I think that Nick Cannon has an amazing, big, spiritual, loving family, and whether it is his brothers, cousins, aunts, uncles, mom, dad, grandparents, or his 3 children, he definitely has support. And I don't think it's that lopsided support. I think it's that real down-home loving support. And maybe that's why we don't see a whole lot of drama in the news with Nick Cannon, because he got so much going on with his family and they're just there for him, and you know what I mean? And maybe when he talks, he's not really talking out the crack of his butt. Maybe he's talking because he's really talking with his family, because I heard him say some things like, almost like he has an old soul, like he always went to his grandparents and to the older people in his family to talk to, which I think is just absolutely special. But like I said, I enjoyed putting this video together, and I hope that you enjoyed it too.
I want you to be encouraged today, and I want you to, if you have a powerful testimony yourself, if God has changed your life, and you know God has changed your life beyond the shadow of a doubt, and you want to have an opportunity to share what God has done for you, I want to give you that.
You're smoking your weed, your cocaine, or whatever. There comes a time for God, put God down, put the weed down, and go to God. After you get through going to God a little bit, then pick your weed and cocaine back up. Keep doing that over and over and over. You'll find out less weed, more God. Less cocaine, more God. You get to the place, you forget all about you had cocaine and weed. God, you be so full in your life that you don't know what to do. I don't know what you're clapping about. Maybe you want me to sit down, but I'm finna go. But the main thing, it seems kind of comic, but y'all don't remember about some of the things I said. It might not be, it might not be tonight, tomorrow, next week, next year, but somewhere along the line, I'll be up there talking to Jesus. I said, Jesus, they don't want to hold that I was talking to that night. See, so this is my point. I don't have no problem letting people know about Jesus. I don't have no problem. Laugh, talk, do chimpanzee flips if you can. I know how good he's been to me. Just how good he's been to me and trying to pass it on the best way I know how, that he will be good to you.
I would like to know how you all feel about this situation, and while you are letting me know, could you please like and share this video and subscribe to Genevas Closet if you haven't already done so right here on YouTube. And you can follow me on Facebook at Genevas Closet, and you can email me at genevascloset22@gmail.com. You all have a fabulous day, and I will talk to you later. Bye.